Some employers have had difficulty finding and retaining employees over the past year. Even as extended unemployment benefits have ended, certain industries have had to offer higher pay and other benefits to attract workers. So, why is that? We'll discuss with local experts about the labor market in our area. NewsMakers, presented by WNIN and the Evansville Courier and Press, is up next. Ask almost any shopper, restaurant diner, or retail customer in town, and they'll tell you, here as in the rest of the country, workers are in short supply. But if you'd like more scientific evidence, the Indiana Chamber of Commerce's 14th Annual Employer Workforce Survey was an eye-opener. Nearly 3/4 of employers told the survey that the supply of employees doesn't meet their needs, and that number is up from 50% last year, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Monday brought the news that family-owned grocery chain Snopes will close most of its stores an hour earlier than usual because of what it called the challenging labor market. Other national and local businesses have also reduced their hours due to staffing shortages. Where are the workers? Why aren't there enough of them to fill job openings? We're now joined by Sarah Worstel, the Executive Director of Grow Southwest Indiana Workforce, to discuss some of the local labor numbers. Greetings, Sarah.
Good morning.
What are the current unemployment rates in our area?
So Grow Southwest Indiana Workforce covers a 9-county region. And we see in our region for July of 2021, which is the most recent numbers that are available, the unemployment rate for those 9 counties is 3.7%. Now that could be compared to July of 2020 when we were at 7.8% unemployment.
Do you think that's an accurate number? Are there some people not being counted because they've maxed out their benefits?
I think that there are some people who are not counted because they have removed themselves from the labor market for a variety of different reasons.
Well, how has the loss of extended unemployment benefits and the return of documenting job searches affected people who are looking for work?
I think that it does put more of an emphasis on returning back to the workforce. Those that did linger on unemployment, the pandemic unemployment federal benefits, once those ended September 4th, we did see an increase in foot traffic within our Work One Southwest offices. But there are some individuals that have retired early once benefits ended. That has taken them out of the labor market. We're also seeing a general hesitancy in returning back to the workforce or back to the workplace. And then there is the looming issue of access to childcare or the lack of access to childcare. We know a lot of people, we face the issue within our own organization of children get quarantined from school. So that does impact a parent's ability to work. And we've also seen some of our local child care centers also struggle to maintain classrooms due to teachers being quarantined or even teachers not returning back to the workplace.
Let's try to put some scale on it. Just how many job openings are there out there?
We see a variety of different job openings. It gets into thousands some days, but depending on when postings become live. And in some of our counties, there's multiple postings for one position. So it is a pretty dire situation for some employers.
Do these numbers match up, or are there some missing workers out there that aren't looking for a job?
I think it depends on the situation. It also depends on how well they're a match to the position that is posted. If you have entry-level skills and it's a skilled maintenance position or a skilled engineering position, you may not be appropriate for that role.
Well, what are some reasons that, What are COVID-19 risk? Is that another reason why they may not be looking, or the cost and availability of childcare?
We find with individuals that come into our Work One offices that childcare is the number one issue, the number one barrier back to employment.
Really?
And then there is a general hesitancy. And some individuals have changed occupations. Our office over the last 2 months have put 17 individuals through training. Majority have been CNA, a certified nursing assistant, but we've also put individuals through CDL training. They may have switched occupations, so that does leave that hole, so to speak, for that previous occupation.
Well, what industries are having the most difficulty finding workers, and why do you think they're having those problems?
I couldn't put my finger on just one, but I believe that it spans all industries. And we do see a lot of reduction in hours or operations within the service industry. I think that's probably the most visible change that has occurred after some of the pandemic crisis. And that service industry does need a variety of skills for those employees.
So what kind of incentives are employers offering? I've heard of some that some retailers are offering, and I know that's just the tip of the iceberg. What kind of incentives are they offering to keep and attract workers?
We've seen sign-on bonuses come back, which we haven't seen for many years. And those sign-on bonuses are paid out over a period of time. So an individual may receive a sign-on bonus of $100, but it may be paid over a period of time if they retain that employment. So the key is retaining employment, but mixed with any industry that's employing individuals that have children that become quarantined because of daycare or school does pose a real challenge in balancing work life.
Now let's add Greg Wathen, co-CEO of the Evansville Regional Economic Partnership, and Evan Wagaman from Sheet Metal 20 and Southern Indiana Area Federation President to the conversation. Eric,
Yes.
Greg, welcome to the party.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg, this might be kind of an understatement, but would you say that a lot of local businesses are having trouble filling positions? And what are they saying to you about it?
Yeah, I think, Tom, we certainly hear about it almost every day. It's kind of one of those things, but it's not unique to our market. It's across the country, and particularly just because of how the pandemic really impacted business. It almost stopped it altogether last year, and then as you're coming back, it's been rather uneven. So it certainly has been within the market itself something that we take a look at. We're trying to assist in whichever way we can, but it's not basically just here in Southwest Indiana. It's across the country.
Eric, are you also seeing labor shortages in your field? What kind of effect have the shortages had?
We haven't really seen shortages. We've manned all of our projects. We were deemed essential workers. We have seen time lapses getting material. So we've not been getting hammered with a lot of work. We've been getting the work and manning the work, but with time lapse on some of the supplies, it has slowed some things down.
Sarah, what is Grow Southwest Indiana Workforce doing to help with shortfalls in the labor market?
We have been retraining individuals. Our office, our Work One Southwest offices throughout our 9 counties have placed individuals into post-secondary training to help skill up individuals. We've done over the last 2 months 17 certifications. Majority have been CNA training, but then there's also some in CDL.
Well, Greg, what are businesses doing to bridge the gap between workers and jobs?
Well, that's a good question, Tom. I think for some businesses, obviously they've adjusted their compensation packages in order to attract talent. That doesn't necessarily mean that the talent pool expands. What it does mean is that for them individually, those businesses might have a better opportunity to land that person. Part of it is what, in some ways, we kind of have created this animal where there's competition with the government as well as businesses as to what are these social safety net programs and how they impact across the country and how they impact individuals saying, when do I come back? Other kinds of things we were talking before about, just the availability or lack thereof of daycare, especially daycare in the second, third shift. Our largest sector by far is manufacturing. And when you're dependent upon manufacturing through 3 shifts, and you have something where in particular, where you may have 2 people working in a household, if they can't coordinate daycare, it becomes a real problem for them to come back into the workforce.
Eric, what are unions doing to attract people?
We have done a lot of different changes. We've all pretty much designed new websites. We've ramped up social media platforms, Facebook to gain the more middle-aged, Snapchat, Instagram to gain the younger. We've developed relationships with Ivy Tech and the Career and Technical Center on Lynch Road. We have, on a statewide level, we have a program for the building trades called Opt-in, which is it promotes all building trades, and it gives students a chance to look and see what they're interested in and apply for apprenticeships through that. Built to Succeed is also partnered with IHSAA. We have started working with the new Young and Established with Director Courtney Johnson to attract younger and minorities. We work with BJ Watts with Opt-in through the EVSC, and a big one that on a national level that we use is Helmets to Hard Hats. That's a national building trades program that works with the military coming into the workforce.
Sarah, how has the economic recovery been affected by the reluctance of some people to get the COVID-19 vaccine and the Delta variant fueled surge?
Well, I think the surge, as Greg had mentioned, is that part of the issue going back to work is daycare. And your child being quarantined, whether or not, that's a major impact to companies. So if a child has been quarantined, whether at daycare or school, or the daycare classroom has closed because of positive cases, that puts the parent at a very hard decision of going to work or staying home with their child if they don't have alternative care.
And actually, we're seeing cases go down locally here, while deaths are going up, but cases are on the way down. We don't know, where that will lead us. Greg, if there's a way for you to put the overall effect of the labor shortage on our local economy.
Well, it's certainly it's kind of interesting because this has been so unusual. We artificially shut the economy down, and when we shut it down, think about this in April of 2020. I think for Toyota, I'm using this as an example. They produced less than 1,000 vehicles in North America. And typically at just Toyota Manufacturing Indiana, they'll produce over 400,000 vehicles during a year. And so when you shut the economy down, it has a ripple effect across, not just through our region, but across the country. So for us, as you're kind of looking at where the workforce and how we bring it back, we're working through we have a couple of interesting pilots that we're working on to identify individuals and then having conversations with those individuals and showing them, hey, there's a pathway for you to work at a place like Toyota or Berry Plastics or AstraZeneca or any of the large manufacturers that we have here. And because sometimes people don't always know, how do I get in? When's that opportunity for me? And we want to be able to demonstrate there is a pathway for that to occur.
Sarah, well, both Deaconess Health System and Ascension St. Vincent have put in vaccine mandates for their employees by the end of September. Do you have any initial estimates of how many have refused to be vaccinated, and are they going to qualify for unemployment benefits?
There is a process that the Indiana Department of Workforce Development has for unemployment compensation. So the individual would have to go and apply through that process.
Eric, let's go big picture here. What effect do you think the pandemic has had on employees and how they look for and choose jobs?
I think a lot of people are just scared, and it's made people change career paths. I think that's why you see a big shortage in the food industry. They were shut down, and a lot of people have moved to a different career where they are not with the public as much. Construction, we have Yeah, there can be a lot of people on a job site at any time, but they're usually spread out, crews all over. So we have actually seen an influx of applicants to get into the building trades, men, women, everyone. But with the child care being so hard to find child care, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, the influx of people not coming back to work.
Right.
You know, Tom, you're going to see, I think what you're going to see as a phenomenon come out of this is more integration of technology, because companies have found such a difficult time of finding people. I think we're going to see more integration of technology at a quicker pace than what we had anticipated. And that in turn will probably impact what Sarah and her team will do, because people have to be reskilled, more than likely. So we're already seeing that happen here. And if it does happen, it will change the landscape of how we look at work moving forward.
Sarah, you look like you have something you just are popping out of you to say.
I completely agree with Greg. We have even had to integrate technology into our own organization, which is a little bit foreign for us. So doing virtual case management or virtual services with individuals during the early onset of the pandemic was something very new to our organization. But we had to shift as well.
We had to shift when everything was shut down as well with apprenticeship programs. We didn't want the apprentices to stop coming to school and slow down their time of getting through school, so we went virtual last year.
Eric, both automation and AI, artificial intelligence, are seen by some people as a solution to workforce issues, shortages. What do you think?
Automation is a good thing. In my line of work in construction, it takes away man hours. But you do have to keep up with the times. I understand that. But on building and construction, let's face it, it would cost millions to have robots do what we do with our hands.
Millions. Okay.
Billions. It would.
Okay. Well, Greg, we see more businesses reducing their hours. As I mentioned earlier, Snooks will be closing an hour earlier next week. Donut Bank has also reduced their hours recently. Do you see this as a trend?
Well, it depends on the sector. I mean, on one hand, you may see, especially in hospitality, retail, we've seen hours being reduced. But on the other hand, what we saw with manufacturing, even there was about a 30-day period in April of 2020 where you saw things really shut down. Then all of a sudden, boom, because most of them were considered essential, you basically saw the kinds of things that were being manufactured in our market. We came back faster as an MSA than any other MSA in the state, primarily because of our mix. So it just depends on the sector, Tom. I mean, I think for hospitality, for retail, probably, but for manufacturing, for health and life science, no, not at all. We're not going to. I think if anything, there's a greater demand now for people than we saw prior.
Sarah, a digital.com survey has indicated that more people are starting their own businesses now instead of working for someone else. Have you seen that trend locally?
Yes, and we've also seen more people enter into that gig economy, being able to work for cash or starting their own business has seen a pretty big boom.
Well, Greg, has the worker shortage caused any changes in the age of workers that employers are hiring?
Yeah, that's another good question, Tom. I think yes, and what you find in particular, because look, listen, of this panel, I'm probably the oldest on this panel, and technology has allowed you to stay longer. I think what you don't want to do is lose the institutional knowledge of those older workers. But yes, I mean, I think in terms of the age of the worker, it all depends on what sector it is, but I would say that people are, if they can, people are probably looking less at retirement. Then again, during the pandemic, there were probably some folks that said, you know what, I think I'm just going to go ahead and retire if I have the opportunity because of what is occurring. Once we shake everything out, though, I think what we're probably going to see is a nice blend of all this activity.
Well, the Indiana Chamber of Commerce's annual employer survey says that companies intend to grow their workforces this year. Is this in industries that are already experiencing shortages?
Yes, and everyone intends to grow because they want to continue to grow. But what you have to do is we're looking at For example, we know there are some companies here now who are working within neighborhoods to actually reach out to individuals who in neighborhoods who never thought they had an opportunity to work at a particular facility, and having those conversations. So how we view work, what we do with work, will most assuredly change. And because of those changes, I think there still are opportunities for growth in our market.
Sarah, from your point of view, how would these companies add more workers? What's the likely pay range of the kinds of jobs that could be added?
So as Greg had mentioned, that community outreach is key. Getting information out to neighborhoods that may be seen as untapped or as serving as a resource within those community organizations is crucial to some companies' growth. Pay ranges, we've seen anything from $17 upwards of $20, $30 an hour.
Let's do some final thoughts. When I interview people for stories for the Courier and Press, I'll usually ask them, is there something that we haven't hit on that you wanted to say? Let's start with you, Greg.
Well, I think part of it, we track on a regular basis how many job postings there are in our marketplace. And sometimes those numbers scare people. The reality is we have a lot of job postings that are in the lower wage, $15 or less. More than likely what's going to occur in order to attract people, many companies, especially in some of those sectors, they're probably going to have to readjust, in particular, how they look at their pay and compensation in order to attract workers.
Eric?
I agree. I was going to highlight on that myself, wages and benefits. We have to get the wages up. $10, $11 an hour is not a livable wage. 15 is not a livable wage when you have to take in consideration childcare, healthcare. Building trade unions provide livable wages, healthcare, pensions, free training. Companies will get workers if they get the wages up.
Sarah, you're up.
I can't reinforce, each one of us have talked about childcare. I can't reinforce enough how the lack of access to affordable childcare plays within industry. Parents become faced with a decision of going to work or having childcare. And that is a major obstacle that industry does play a role in trying to help solve some of those obstacles.
Sarah, Eric, Greg, thank you for joining us on NewsMakers.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks to all of our guests for joining us this week. Next week, we'll be talking to U.S. Congressman Larry Bucshon about what's been happening in Congress and how it impacts his local constituents here in Southwest Indiana. And we'll check in on the 100th West Side Nut Club Fall Festival. That's it for this week on NewsMakers, presented by WNIN and the Evansville Courier and Press. I got a ton of positive feedback about last week's episode of NewsMakers. About me? No. About my coworker, co-host, Evansville Courier and Press local government reporter, Sarah Lesh. So I had a little chat with Sarah about the possibility of sometime coming on and co-hosting the program again.
What?
I need you to do NewsMakers again.
Really? Why?
After you were on last week, people really responded. When's Sarah going to come on again? Sarah was great. Sarah should be your permanent co-host. Sarah. Listen, remember when I joked on the second episode that we hadn't gotten canceled yet? I'm serious now. I'm afraid if you don't come again, I will get canceled.
Get out of here.
I'm telling you, The viewers loved you.
Really?
Come on, man.